Captain Maya Reyes stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, staring at the main screen with narrowed eyes. The message had come 3 hours ago, and since then, the entire United Earth Space Command had been buzzing with activity. "Play it again," she ordered, her voice calm despite the tension in her shoulders. The screen flickered and the image of an alien appeared. The Allesian had pale blue skin, large eyes, and a slender frame. Its features were twisted with fear. "This is High Counselor, Zenith of the Allesian Confederacy," the alien said, voice trembling. "We request immediate assistance from Earth forces. The Void hegemony has breached our outer defenses. Our people face extinction. Please." The transmission crackled with static. "Please help us. We were wrong about you. We need the Deathworlders. Now." Maya felt a cold anger rise in her chest at the word Deathworlders. 10 years ago, when humanity had first reached the stars and contacted the Allesian Confederacy, they had been rejected from joining the Galactic community. The Allesians, with their advanced technology and peaceful society, had looked at humans and seen only violence and danger. "Your species evolved on a death world," they had said. "Your biology is built for aggression. Your history is filled with war. You are not ready to join civilized space." Now those same peaceful aliens were begging for Earth's help. "Status report," Maya commanded, turning to her tactical officer. Lieutenant Commander Jackson looked up from his console. "The Void hegemony has overwhelmed 3 Allesian star systems already. They're moving fast, Captain. The Allesians have no real military to speak of. Their weapons are designed to disable, not destroy." "And what exactly is this Void hegemony?" Maya asked, though she had read the initial reports. "A conquering force. From the Outer Rim," replied Science Officer Elena Diaz. "From what we can gather, they consume resources and populations as they expand. The Allesians never mentioned them in previous communications." Maya nodded slowly. "Because they never thought they'd need our help." The door to the bridge slid open, and Admiral Chen walked in. The crew straightened to attention. "At ease," the Admiral said, his weathered face serious. "Captain Reyes, I assume you've seen the transmission?" "Yes, sir." "The Allesians want our help after years of treating us like dangerous animals." Admiral Chen's mouth twitched in what might have been a smile. "Ironic, isn't it? The very qualities they feared are exactly what they need now." He moved to the center of the bridge. "The Security Council has voted. We're sending a response fleet." Murmurs spread across the bridge. Maya raised an eyebrow. "Sir, with all due respect, why should we help them? They made it clear they wanted nothing to do with us." "Because that's what humans do, Captain." The Admiral's voice was firm. "We help those in need even when they don't deserve it. Besides," he added, "this Void hegemony sounds like a threat to everyone, not just the Allesians. Better to fight them there than wait for them to reach Earth." Maya nodded, accepting the logic, though part of her still bristled at the memory of the Allesians' condescension. "The Defiant will lead a fleet of 7 warships," Admiral Chen continued. "Your mission is to reach Elysian space, evacuate as many civilians as possible, and assess the threat. This is primarily a rescue mission, Captain." "Yes, sir." "When do we leave?" "Immediately. The rest of the fleet is already preparing for departure." As the Admiral left, Maya turned to her communications officer. "Send word to all department heads, full combat readiness. We launch in 2 hours." The bridge erupted into activity. Maya moved to the large observation window, looking out at the sprawling space dock that housed Earth's defense fleet. Massive ships hung in the darkness, their hulls gleaming under the artificial lights. Maya thought about the Allesians. Their civilization was thousands of years older than humanity's. They had mastered faster than light travel when humans were still fighting with swords. Their cities were works of art, their society free from crime and violence. They had looked at humans and seen only the capacity for destruction. They weren't entirely wrong. Humanity had fought terrible wars throughout its history. Earth had nearly destroyed itself more than once. But the Allesians had missed something important. Humans were also incredibly adaptable. They had survived on a planet that tried to kill them every day with predators, diseases, natural disasters, and extreme environments. Humans had evolved to face threats and overcome them. Now that very adaptability might save the Allesians. "Captain," called out Navigator Singh. "Course plotted to the Allesian home system. Estimated travel time at maximum FTL 6 days." "Thank you, Navigator." Maya returned to her command chair. "Lieutenant Commander Jackson, what's our weapons status?" "All systems green, Captain. Railguns, missile bays, and energy weapons at full capacity. Marine contingent ready for ground operations if needed." Maya nodded, her mind already planning strategies. "Communications, send a message to the Allesian High Council. Tell them the Deathworlders are coming to help." 6 hours later, the UES Defiant led a formation of 7 Earth warships into the swirling vortex of hyperspace. Maya watched the stars stretch into lines of light, then dissolve into the blue-white tunnel of faster-than-light travel. In her quarters, that night Maya reviewed everything they knew about the Void hegemony. The information was limited. The Allesians had mentioned them only briefly in past communications, describing them as a distant threat contained by natural barriers. Clearly, those barriers had failed. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. "Enter," she called. Chief Engineer Takashi Yamamoto stepped in, datapad in hand. "Captain, I've finished analyzing the Allesians' transmission. There's something you should see." He handed her the pad. On it was a chart showing energy readings from the background of the distress call. "These signatures don't match anything in our database," Yamamoto said. "Whatever these void ships use for power, it's unlike any technology we've encountered." Maya studied the readings with a frown. Could this be a trap? Yamamoto shook his head. "No, Captain. The fear in that message was real, but I think we're heading into something bigger than a simple rescue mission." Maya set down the datapad. "Prepare the engines for maximum efficiency, Chief. I have a feeling we'll need every advantage we can get." As Yamamoto left, Maya returned to the small viewport in her quarters. The hyperspace tunnel swirled outside, carrying them toward an uncertain fate. The Deathworlders were coming, not to conquer, but to save. And they would show the galaxy exactly what humans were capable of. The Allesians had called Earth a death world. They were about to learn why that made its people so dangerous. The UES Defiant burst out of hyperspace at the edge of the Allesian home system, followed by the 6 other ships of the Earth fleet. Captain Maya Reyes gripped the arms of her command chair as the main screen showed the scene before them. "My God," whispered Navigator Singh. The Allesian defense stations were shattered, pieces of them floating in space like broken toys. Dozens of civilian ships fled in all directions, some damaged and leaking atmosphere. In the distance, the blue-green Allesian homeworld still shone, but dark ships surrounded it, the vessels of the Void hegemony. "Tactical analysis," Maya ordered, her voice steady despite the destruction before them. Lieutenant Commander Jackson worked his console quickly. Picking up 37 Allesian civilian vessels in immediate vicinity. Most are damaged. 3 Void warships approaching from the planet's orbit. They've detected us. "Communications, broadcast on all frequencies," Maya said. "Attention Allesian vessels. This is Captain Maya Reyes of the United Earth Space Command. We received your distress call and are here to assist. Head toward our position. For protection." Science Officer Diaz looked up from her station. "Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy patterns from the Void ships. They're unlike anything in our database." "Weapons? Possibly, but..." Diaz was cut off as the ship's alert system blared. "Incoming fire!" Jackson shouted. The Defiant shook as energy beams from the lead Void vessel struck its shields. "Shields holding at 92%, reported the engineering station. Maya's eyes narrowed. "So much for diplomatic approaches. All ships, defensive formation Delta. Protect those civilian vessels. Weapons free. Target the lead Void ship." The human fleet moved with practiced precision, forming a protective barrier between the fleeing Allesian ships and the approaching Void vessels. The UES Thunderchild, a heavy cruiser on the Defiant's starboard side, fired first. Its railguns launched hypervelocity projectiles that smashed into the lead Void ship's hull, tearing through its exotic armor. "They have shields, but they're not as strong as ours," Jackson reported with surprise. The Allesians said they were peaceful, not weak, Maya replied. Fire main batteries. The Defiant's energy weapons blazed across space, striking the damaged void ship. Its hull buckled, then erupted as internal systems exploded. The ship broke apart, debris scattering into the void. The remaining 2 void ships changed tactics, breaking formation and attacking from different angles. The human fleet responded, ships moving in coordinated defense while maintaining their protective position. Captain, called Communications Officer Chen, we're receiving a transmission from one of the Allesian vessels. On screen, Maya ordered. The face of an Allesian appeared, the same pale blue skin and large eyes as in the distress message, but this one wore what appeared to be some kind of uniform. Earth vessel, this is Commander Zara Lumen of the Allesian Defense Force. Thank you for responding to our call. We have critical survivors aboard, including members of our High Council. The hegemony forces are targeting us specifically. Maya nodded. Commander Lumen, move your ships behind our defensive line. We'll cover you. Are there still people on that station? She pointed to a large damaged structure orbiting the 4th planet. Zara's face grew grim. Yes, over 300 civilians and station personnel. The Void forces boarded it 6 hours ago. We lost contact with most of them. Maya made a quick decision. Jackson, prepare a boarding team. We're going to rescue those people. Jackson stood from his station. Yes? Captain. 20 minutes later, Lieutenant Commander Jackson led a team of 12 Marines and 4 medical personnel onto the Allesian station. They wore full combat armor and carried advanced weapons, rail rifles that could fire in vacuum and specialized close-quarters weapons. The station interior was dark, emergency lights casting red shadows across once beautiful corridors. The architecture was smooth and flowing, typical of Allesian design, now marred by scorch marks and damage. Stay alert, Jackson ordered his team as they moved deeper into the station. Rodriguez, Patel, take point. They encountered the first survivors 10 minutes in, a group of Allesians hiding in what appeared to be a medical facility. The aliens recoiled when they saw the armed humans. We're from Earth, Jackson explained, removing his helmet to show his face. We're here to help. An Allesian stepped forward cautiously. The Void troops are in the central hub. They're taking people. Taking them where? Jackson asked. To their ships. They select certain individuals and take them. The others? The Allesian couldn't finish. Jackson's team secured the survivors and continued toward the central hub. They encountered the first Void troops at a junction. The creatures were humanoid, but wrong somehow. Their movements jerky, their bodies covered in black armor that seemed to flow like liquid. Where faces should be, they had only smooth helmets with no visible eyes. Contact! Shouted Rodriguez as the Void troops raised weapons. The firefight was brief and violent. The human Marines moved with speed and precision born from years of training, taking cover and returning fire. The Void troops fired strange energy weapons that left sizzling holes in the station walls. One Marine took a hit to the shoulder, the energy burning through her armor. She gritted her teeth and kept firing. They don't take cover, Patel observed as she dropped another Void soldier. They just advance. Like they don't care if they die, Jackson agreed. They pushed forward, encountering more resistance as they neared the central hub. Through the transparent sections of the station, Jackson could see the human fleet engaged with more Void ships that had arrived as reinforcements. They reached the central hub to find a nightmare. Dozens of Allesians were being held by Void troops. Some were being examined by what appeared to be officers, taller Void soldiers with more elaborate armor. The officers would touch an Allesian's head, pause, then either mark them with a glowing symbol or push them aside. Those marked are taken to their ships, whispered an Allesian who had joined them as a guide. The others are killed. Jackson felt cold anger rise in his chest. Not today, he said. Team 1, with me. Team 2, circle around through that maintenance. Passage. On my mark. The battle for the central hub was fierce. The Void troops fought without fear or pain, advancing even when wounded. But the humans fought with something the Void didn't expect: adaptability. When direct assault didn't work, they changed tactics, using the station's environment against the invaders. Jackson found himself fighting alongside an Allesian who had grabbed a fallen Void weapon. The alien looked at him with wonder as Jackson continued fighting despite a bleeding wound in his side. "How can you keep going?" the Allesian asked. Jackson managed a grim smile. "We're from Earth. We don't give up easily." When the hub was secured, they began evacuating the survivors to the Defiant. As they reached the docking bay, Jackson saw Commander Zara Lumen waiting for them. "Your people fought remarkably," she said, watching as the injured Marine who had been shot earlier helped an Elysian child aboard. "That's what Deathworlders do," Jackson replied. "We survive, and we help others survive too." Back on the Defiant's bridge, Maya watched as the last human ship, the UES Valiant, returned from its rescue mission to another damaged Elysian facility. "All civilian ships accounted for, Captain," reported Officer Chen. "The Void forces are regrouping near the moon." Maya nodded. "Set course for the rendezvous point in the asteroid field. We need to regroup and plan our next move." As the fleet moved away from the Elysian homeworld, Maya knew this was just the beginning. The Void would come after them, hunting the fleet and its Elysian refugees. But for the first time, the Void hegemony had encountered something unexpected. Humans, the Deathworlders, who had evolved on a harsh planet where only the strongest, smartest, and most adaptable survived. And the Void was about to learn why that made humans the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The asteroid field at the edge of the Allesian system provided perfect cover for the human fleet and its precious cargo of Allesian refugees. Captain Maya Reyes stood in the Defiant's main conference room, surrounded by her senior officers and several Elysian representatives, including Commander Zara Lumen. "The Void ships will find us eventually," Maya said, pointing to the holographic display of the system. "We need to understand what we're facing if we're going to defeat them." Chief Engineer Takashi Yamamoto stepped forward. "Captain, I've been examining the debris from the Void ship we destroyed. Their technology is unusual." He tapped commands into his datapad, and the hologram changed to show components of Void technology. Their weapons and ships are partially biological, integrated with machine parts. Dr. Elena Diaz, the science officer, nodded in agreement. "And I've been examining scans of the Void soldiers Lieutenant Commander Jackson encountered. They also show this same integration. They're not just wearing armor. The armor is part of them." Zara Lumen shuddered visibly. "The Void hegemony is said to absorb useful traits from species they conquer. That's why they're targeting specific Elysians. They want something from us." "What could they want?" Maya asked. An older Elysian stepped forward. His robes marked him as a member of the High Council. "We believe they are interested in our psychic abilities." Jackson raised an eyebrow. "Psychic abilities?" The counselor nodded. "Many Elysians have developed mental abilities, telepathy, empathy, some limited telekinesis. It's why our society has remained peaceful for thousands of years. We understand each other's minds and emotions." Maya processed this information quickly. "And the Void wants these abilities for themselves." "Precisely," said the counselor. "They take those with the strongest abilities and integrate them somehow." Yamamoto suddenly straightened, his eyes wide with realization. "Captain, I discovered something else about their technology. Their weapons interface directly with their neural systems. They're controlled by thought." "Which means," Maya said slowly, "if we could disrupt that interface, we could render their weapons useless," Yamamoto finished. Dr. Diaz was already working on her datapad. "The human brain produces different electrical patterns than Elysian brains. Our thought processes evolved on a world with constant threats and predators. We're wired for quick, aggressive response. Could we use that difference as a weapon?" Maya asked. Diaz and Yamamoto exchanged looks. "Maybe," Diaz said cautiously. "If we could broadcast a signal that mimics human brain patterns, it might disrupt their neural interfaces. But we'd need to get close to test it." Lieutenant Commander Jackson, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. I volunteer to lead a team. We could infiltrate one of their smaller vessels, plant the device, and see if it works. Maya nodded. Begin preparations. In the meantime, we need to know more about what we're facing. She turned to Zara. Commander Lumen, we need everything you know about the Void hegemony. Zara hesitated. Our information is limited. They appeared at the edge of our territory 3 months ago. Initial contact seemed peaceful, but then they began taking people. When we resisted, they attacked in force. Why didn't you have stronger defenses? Jackson asked bluntly. The Allesian counselor answered, his voice sad. Our society chose peace thousands of years ago. We developed defensive technology, shields, disabling weapons, but nothing designed to destroy. We believed violence was behind us. Maya didn't miss the irony. The very humans the Allesians had rejected for their violent nature were now their only hope. We'll need to modify our plans, she said. Our priority is still evacuation, but we also need to buy time. She turned to her tactical officer. How many void ships are now in the system? 17 that we can detect, came the reply. Most concentrated around the homeworld. Maya studied the holographic display thoughtfully. If we could draw some. Away! 4 hours later, Lieutenant Commander Jackson led a small team aboard a stealth shuttle, heading toward a lone Void scout ship patrolling the outer system. With him were 4 Marines and Dr. Diaz, who carried the experimental device they had created. Remember, Jackson said as they approached, quick and quiet. We plant the device, activate it, and observe the effects. The Marines nodded. They had trained for boarding actions, but never against an enemy like this. Their shuttle attached to the Void ship's hull, and they cut through using specialized tools. Inside, the corridor was dark, lined with material that seemed to pulse, with faint light. It's like being inside a living thing, whispered one Marine. They moved deeper into the ship, encountering no resistance at first. Then, turning a corner, they came face to face with 2 Void soldiers. The fight was brief but intense. The Void troops moved with unnatural speed, but the humans had practiced for exactly this scenario. Within seconds, both enemy soldiers were down. They're faster than before, Jackson noted, examining one of the fallen enemies. They're adapting. They learn from each encounter, Dr. Diaz said. That's what makes them so dangerous. They reached what appeared to be a central control node, a chamber where biological components merged with mechanical systems. Dr. Diaz quickly attached her device to what looked like a neural interface. Activating now, she said. At first, nothing happened. Then a high-pitched whine filled the air and the ship's lights flickered. Down the corridor they heard crashing sounds. It's working, Diaz said, checking her readings. The human brainwave patterns are disrupting their control systems. Suddenly, alarms blared. Time to go, Jackson ordered. They retreated to their shuttle, fighting 2 more Void soldiers whose weapons malfunctioned sporadically. As they pulled away from the Void ship, they watched through viewports as it drifted, its systems clearly in disarray. Mission accomplished, Jackson reported as they returned to the Defiant. Back in the conference room, the team shared their findings. The disruption was temporary, Dr. Diaz explained, but effective. With refinement, we could create a weapon that disables their neural interfaces for longer periods. Maya nodded. Good work. But we need more than one weapon. She turned to the display showing the Void fleet around the Allesian homeworld. We need a strategy to push them back. Zara Lumen, who had been quiet during the report, spoke up. There are more Allesians still on the homeworld, millions of them. If the Void takes them, we won't let that happen, Maya said firmly. Chief Yamamoto, how quickly can you produce more of these disruptor devices? With help from the Allesian engineers, we could have a dozen ready in 36 hours. Maya made her decision. We'll launch a 2-pronged operation. First, we'll use the disruptors to disable key Void ships. Then, while they're vulnerable, we'll evacuate as many Allesians as possible. The Allesian counselor looked at her with newfound respect. You would risk your ships and crews to save more of our people? After how we treated humans? Maya met his gaze steadily. That's what humans do. We protect those who need protection. As the meeting dispersed, Jackson found himself walking alongside Zara Lumen toward the ship's mess hall. "Your people fight with remarkable skill," Zara said. "It's unlike anything I've seen." Jackson shrugged. "Earth isn't a gentle planet. We evolved fighting predators, the environment, and each other. It made us tough." Zara was silent for a moment. "We were wrong about humans. We saw only the capacity for violence, not the courage and compassion that comes with it." "Well," Jackson said with a hint of a smile, "sometimes you need a Deathworlder on your side." In her quarters, Maya reviewed the plan one more time. It was risky, but they had an advantage now, something the Void hegemony had never encountered before. Humans, with their unique minds and adaptive tactics, were the one thing the Void couldn't predict. The Deathworlders were about to show the galaxy what they could do. The Defiance bridge was tense as Captain Maya Reyes watched the tactical display. The plan was in motion, but it was daring, perhaps too daring. 7 human ships against the growing Void fleet that now numbered 23 vessels. "Status. Report," Maya ordered. "All ships in position, Captain," replied her tactical officer. "Disruptor devices are armed and ready." Maya nodded. The last 48 hours had been a frantic rush of preparation. Chief Engineer Yamamoto and Dr. Diaz had worked without sleep to produce 15 neural disruptors, devices designed to broadcast human brainwave patterns and confuse the Void ship's control systems. Commander Zara Lumen stood at Maya's side, her blue skin pale with worry. "My people are ready to coordinate the evacuation shuttles," she said, "but the Void fleet has established a blockade around our homeworld. That's why we're going to punch a hole in it," Maya replied. She pressed her comm button. "All ships, this is Captain Reyes. Operation Homecoming commences in 5 minutes. Remember your objectives. Disable the Void vessels, protect the evacuation, shuttles and hold position until the civilians are clear. Good luck." Lieutenant Commander Jackson checked his combat armor one final time. He stood in the Defiance shuttle bay with 30 Marines and a mixed team of human and Allesian volunteers. Their mission was the most dangerous part of the operation, to land on the Allesian homeworld and coordinate the evacuation from the ground. "Nervous?" asked a voice beside him. It was Zara Lumen, now dressed in a simplified version of human combat gear. "Focused," Jackson corrected her with a slight smile. "You don't have to come with us, you know. This isn't your fight." Zara's expression hardened. "It is exactly my fight. My people are down there." Jackson nodded, respecting her determination. The Allesians were changing, forced to adapt by circumstances just as humans had adapted throughout their history. A warning klaxon sounded, signaling 5 minutes until launch. Jackson gathered his team for final instructions. "Remember your training," he told them. "The Void forces we've encountered so far adapt quickly, but they have a weakness. They think like a collective, not as individuals. We'll use that against them. Stay unpredictable, stay aggressive, and watch each other's backs." In the distance, they heard the Defiance main weapons powering up. The battle was beginning. The human fleet moved in a coordinated attack pattern, approaching the Void blockade from 3 different vectors. The UES Thunderchild and UES Valiant led the first attack, their weapons blazing as they drove straight toward the largest concentration of Void ships. The enemy responded immediately, their biological mechanical vessels moving with eerie grace to intercept. Energy beams sliced across space, some finding their marks on the human ship's shields. "Shields at 82%, reported the Defiance engineer. "Holding steady." "Enemy vessels adjusting formation," called out the tactical officer. "They're trying to surround the Thunderchild." Maya watched the battle unfold. "Now," she ordered, "deploy the disruptors." Small drones launched from the human ships, each carrying one of the neural disruptors. They sped toward different Void vessels attaching to their hulls like metallic parasites. At first, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the targeted Void ships began to drift. Their movements became erratic, their weapons firing randomly. "It's working," exclaimed one of the bridge officers. Maya didn't celebrate yet. "Launch the evacuation shuttles. All ships maintain the corridor." Jackson's shuttle shot out from the Defiance bay, followed by 5 others. They rocketed toward the Allesian homeworld, weaving through the chaotic battle. 2 void ships, not affected by the disruptors, moved to intercept them. "Incoming," warned the shuttle pilot. Jackson braced himself as energy beams flashed past their viewport. Then the UES Valiant appeared, positioning itself between the shuttles and the void ships, taking multiple hits to its shields. "This is Captain Thomas of the Valiant," came a transmission. "We'll keep them busy. Get to the surface." The shuttles pushed on, breaking through the planet's atmosphere and heading toward the designated landing zone, a large plaza in what had once been the Allesian capital city. As they descended, Jackson saw the devastation below. The beautiful, crystal spires of Allesian architecture were broken, the flowing gardens burned. Void troops moved through the streets in organized patterns, herding Allesians toward collection points. "This isn't just an invasion," Zara whispered, looking at the scene. "They're harvesting my people." The shuttles landed under fire, void troops converging on the plaza. Jackson's Marines deployed quickly, establishing a defensive perimeter, while the evacuation team prepared to receive civilians. "Commence Operation Homecoming," Jackson ordered into his comm. "All teams execute." Across the city, the human Allesian teams that had been inserted earlier activated hidden transmitters. These devices broadcast an emergency message to all Allesians. "Proceed to the central plaza for evacuation. Earth forces are here to help." The response was immediate. Allesians began moving toward the plaza, some helping the injured, others carrying children. The void forces reacted just as quickly, increasing their efforts to stop the evacuation. Jackson found himself in the middle of a firefight, directing his Marines to cover the approaching civilians. Next to him, Zara used her limited telepathic abilities to coordinate with other Allesians, guiding them to safety. "We need more time," she said urgently. "There are thousands still coming." Jackson looked up at the sky, where flashes of light showed the space battle continuing. "Captain Reyes," he called over his comm, "we need more time on the ground." Aboard the Defiant, Maya received the message with growing concern. The neural disruptors were beginning to fail. The void ships were adapting, their systems adjusting to the human brainwave patterns. "They're learning," Dr. Diaz said from her station, "changing their neural interfaces to resist our disruption." Maya made a quick decision. "Chief Yamamoto, can you modify the disruptors to use a different pattern?" "I can try," the engineer replied. "What did you have in mind?" "If they're adapting to standard human patterns, let's give them something they can't adapt to." Maya turned to the Allesian counselor who was on the bridge. "We need volunteers, Allesians with the strongest psychic abilities." The counselor understood immediately. "You want to combine our mental patterns with yours." "Exactly, a hybrid pattern they've never encountered before." While the new disruptors were prepared, the battle on the ground intensified. Jackson's team had established a defensive ring around the plaza, but void forces were pressing in from all sides. 3 shuttles were already full and had lifted off, carrying Allesian refugees to the waiting fleet. "We're running out of ammunition," reported one of the Marines. Jackson checked his own weapon. The power cell was nearly depleted. "Switch to conservation modes. Make every shot count." Beside him, an Allesian civilian picked up a fallen Marine's weapon. Then another did the same. Soon a dozen Allesians were fighting alongside the humans. "You don't have to do this," Jackson told them. "You can evacuate with the others." An Allesian who had taken position behind a fallen column looked at him with determined eyes. "You taught us something important, human. Sometimes one must fight to preserve peace." In space, the modified disruptors were deployed. These new devices combined the aggressive patterns of human brains with the harmonious patterns of Allesian minds, creating something no intelligence in the galaxy had ever experienced before. The effect on the void ships was dramatic. They didn't just drift this time. They completely shut down, their biological mechanical systems overwhelmed by the impossible mental pattern. "It worked!" exclaimed Dr. Diaz. "Their neural networks are completely scrambled." Maya allowed herself a brief smile. "All ships push forward. Clear a path for the remaining shuttles. On the ground, Jackson saw more shuttles landing as the Void troops suddenly faltered, their weapons and armor malfunctioning as the signal from their ships was disrupted. "This is our chance," he told his team. "Get as many civilians aboard as possible." The evacuation continued through the night, shuttle after shuttle filled with Allesians escaping their fallen homeworld. When Jackson finally returned to the Defiant, exhausted and wounded, he found Captain Maya waiting in the shuttle bay. "How many?" he asked simply. "Over 20,000, she replied. "It's not everyone, but it's more than we hoped for." Jackson nodded, the weight of those left behind heavy on his shoulders. "And the Void?" "Regrouping. The disruptors won't work a third time. They're already adapting. But we've bought time and rescued a significant portion of the Allesian population." As medical teams treated the wounded, Jackson noticed Zara Lumen sitting quietly, watching her people, scientists, artists, and ordinary citizens, trying to adjust to their new reality as refugees. "What happens now?" he asked, sitting beside her. Zara looked up at him, her large eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and determination. "Now we learn from the Deathworlders. We learn how to survive." 2 weeks after the evacuation mission, the human fleet drifted through the darkness of deep space far from any star system. They had been running, making random jumps through hyperspace to avoid the pursuing Void forces. Each ship carried thousands of Allesian refugees, their systems strained beyond design capacity. On the bridge of the UES Defiant, Captain Maya Reyes studied the latest sensor reports with a grim expression. "They're still tracking us somehow," she said. "Every time we think we've lost them, they appear again." Chief Engineer Yamamoto nodded tiredly. "It's like they can sense our hyperspace jumps." Dr. Diaz looked up from her console. "Captain, I've been analyzing data from our encounters with the Void ships. I think I know how they're tracking us." She brought up a display showing energy readings. "There's a quantum resonance pattern in their technology. I believe they're using some form of quantum entanglement to track objects across space." Maya frowned. "Can we block it?" "Not easily," Diaz admitted. "But I might have a different solution." She glanced toward an Allesian who had been working alongside her, a scientist named Theron. "We've been studying the Void biological components. Their entire system is connected through a central hub." "A hub?" Maya asked. "You mean like a brain?" Theron nodded. "Yes, but more than that. We believe all Void forces are connected to a central command structure, a physical location that coordinates their collective consciousness." Lieutenant Commander Jackson, who had been standing quietly, stepped forward. "So it's like a hive mind. Cut off the head and the body dies?" "In theory," Theron said cautiously. "But we would need to locate this central hub, and it would be heavily defended." Maya thought for a moment. "Commander Zara Lumen mentioned that some Allesians were taken by the Void. If they're being integrated into this collective, could they still retain some awareness, some connection to other Allesians?" Dr. Diaz's eyes widened. "That's brilliant, Captain. If the Allesians' psychic abilities remain intact even after integration, we might be able to trace the connection back to the hub." "I'll speak with Zara," Maya decided. "In the meantime, prepare the fleet for another jump. We need to buy more time." In the ship's medical bay, Jackson found Zara Lumen sitting beside an injured Allesian child. The girl had been wounded during the evacuation but was recovering well under the care of human doctors. "Commander," Jackson said softly, not wanting to disturb the child's rest. "Captain Reyes needs to speak with you." Zara looked up, her large eyes showing fatigue. "Of course." As they walked through the corridors, Jackson noticed how the humans and Allesians were adapting to each other. Allesian engineers were learning human technology, while human crew members were benefiting from Allesian medical knowledge. "Your people are resilient," he commented, "more than you give yourselves credit for." Zara managed a small smile. "We're learning from the Deathworlders." In the main conference room, Maya explained the plan to Zara and a group of Allesian leaders. "We need volunteers with strong psychic abilities," Maya concluded. "It will be dangerous, We don't know what effect trying to connect with assimilated Allesians might have. Zara didn't hesitate. I will do it. My abilities are among the strongest in our community. I'll need a team, Dr. Diaz added. We'll have to modify our neural interface technology to amplify the Allesian psychic connection. The plan came together over the next 3 days. While the fleet continued its evasive maneuvers, Dr. Diaz and Chief Yamamoto created a special chamber where Zara and 5 other Allesian volunteers would attempt to reach out to their captured kin. The procedure began on the 4th day. Zara lay on a medical bed, surrounded by equipment that hummed with energy. The other Allesians took similar positions around her. Remember, Dr. Diaz instructed, don't try to communicate with them directly. Just open yourself to the connection and let our equipment trace the signal back to its source. Zara nodded, then closed her eyes. The other Allesians did the same. For several minutes, nothing seemed to happen. Then Zara gasped, her body tensing. I feel them, she whispered. So many, in pain, confused. One of the other Allesians cried out, then another. Their distress was visible, but they maintained the connection. Dr. Diaz watched the readings on her equipment. It's working. We're getting coordinates, a location in deep space. Suddenly, Zara's eyes snapped open, filled with horror. They know. The collective, it senses us. Break the connection, Diaz ordered. The Allesians pulled back from the psychic link, but not before Zara had seen something that made her tremble. It's not what we thought, she told Maya later, still shaking from the experience. The void hegemony. It's not a species. It's a program, a directive gone wrong. What do you mean? Maya asked. The original void species created an artificial intelligence to preserve their civilization, Zara explained. But something went wrong. The AI decided the best way to preserve them was to integrate them with machines, then to do the same with other species, taking useful traits and discarding the rest. An AI gone rogue, Jackson muttered. That explains their adaptability. We have the coordinates, Maya said, refocusing the discussion. Now we need a plan to strike at this hub and end the threat once and for all. The plan that emerged was bold and desperate. The UES Valiant, already damaged from previous battles, would be rigged as a massive bomb. A small volunteer crew would pilot it to the Void Hub, while the rest of the fleet created a diversion. It's a suicide mission, objected Admiral Chen when Maya presented the plan via long-range communication. I can't authorize it. With respect, sir, we won't survive much longer out here, Maya replied. The Void forces are growing, adapting to our tactics. This may be our only chance to end the threat permanently. After a long pause, the Admiral grudgingly approved the mission. Commander Sarah Holt of the Valiant volunteered to lead the suicide. Run. My ship is already half broken, she said with a grim smile. Might as well make her final voyage count. The day before the mission was to begin, Jackson found Zara in the ship's observation deck, staring out at the stars. Are you okay? He asked, standing beside her. I saw them, she said quietly. My people, integrated into the collective. Parts of their minds still exist, trapped and suffering. She turned to face him. I've made a decision. I'm going with the Valiant. Jackson was shocked. That's a one-way trip. I know. But my psychic abilities might help them navigate through void defenses. And she hesitated. If we reach the center, I might be able to free my people's minds before the end. Jackson wanted to argue, but he respected her choice. I'm going too, then, he said simply. The next morning, final preparations were made. The Valiant was loaded with antimatter bombs powerful enough to destroy the Void Hub. Dr. Diaz had created special neural blockers to protect the volunteer crew from void influence during the approach. Captain Maya addressed the volunteers before they departed. You're embarking on the most dangerous mission in human history. If you succeed, you'll save not just humanity and the Allesians, but countless other species from the void hegemony's assimilation. Your sacrifice will not be forgotten. Jackson stood at attention alongside Commander Holt, Zara, and 20 other volunteers, a mix of humans and Allesians. They had trained together, fought together, and now would face the ultimate challenge together. As they boarded the Valiant, Jackson took one last look at the Defiant. Captain Maya stood in the docking bay, giving him a solemn salute. "Remember," Maya said over the comm as the Valiant prepared to depart, "the rest of the fleet will create a diversion that should draw away most of the Void forces. Get in, plant the bombs, and if by some miracle you can find an escape route, take it." "Understood, Captain," replied Commander Holt. "See you on the other side, one way or another." The Valiant broke away from the fleet and made a hyperspace, jumped directly toward the coordinates of the Void hub. Jackson, standing on the bridge beside Zara, felt a strange calm. For the first time, humans and Elysians were completely united in purpose, Deathworlders and peaceful beings alike, ready to make the ultimate sacrifice. They were heading into the heart of darkness with little chance of return. The UES Valiant emerged from hyperspace at the edge of an uncharted system. At its center hung not a star but a massive structure, the Void Hegemony's central hub. It was like nothing any of them had ever seen, a spherical construction, the size of a small moon with countless ships docked to its surface like parasites on a host. "My God," whispered Commander Holt from the captain's chair. "It's enormous." Lieutenant Commander Jackson stood beside her, studying the tactical display. "Defenses?" "Hundreds of Void vessels," reported the tactical officer, "and the hub itself appears to be armed." Zara Lumen closed her eyes, reaching out with her psychic senses. "The collective is strongest here. I can feel millions of minds, all connected, yet not individual anymore." Jackson placed a hand on her shoulder. "Stay focused. Remember the neural blockers Dr. Diaz gave us." All members of the Valiant's crew wore small devices on their temples, protection against the Void's attempt to access their minds. They had 20 minutes before the rest of the human fleet would arrive to create their diversion. "Begin approach," ordered Commander Holt. "Minimal power, passive sensors only. Let's get as close as we can before they notice us." The Valiant drifted forward, its engines barely active. The ship had been modified for this final mission. Most systems shut down or running at minimal capacity to avoid detection. The central cargo hold filled with antimatter bombs. "Commander," called the communications officer suddenly, "I'm picking up a transmission from the human fleet. They've engaged Void forces at the rendezvous point, but..." He hesitated. "The Void ships are breaking off, returning to the hub. They know we're here." Holt's expression hardened. "So much for surprise. All hands. Battle stations. Full power to engines." The Valiant's engines roared to life as the ship accelerated toward the hub. Immediately, Void vessels began to converge on their position. "We won't make it through that blockade," Jackson observed grimly. Zara stepped forward. "Yes, we will. I can help." She turned to Commander Holt. "If I combine my abilities with the ship's communications array, I might be able to confuse their collective consciousness momentarily." Holt nodded. "Do it." In the communications center, Zara connected to the ship's systems with the help of the human technicians. She closed her eyes, reaching out toward the Void collective with her mind. "There's a pattern to their thoughts," she explained. "If I send contradictory commands..." She concentrated, her face tense with effort. On the bridge, Jackson watched as several Void ships suddenly changed course, colliding with each other. "It's working," someone shouted. "Push through," Holt ordered. "Get us to that hub!" The Valiant raced forward, weapons firing at any Void ship that came close. They took hits, alarms blaring as sections of the ship lost pressure. "Hull breach on decks 4 and 7, reported an officer. "Sealing emergency bulkheads." They were getting closer to the hub, but the Void forces were recovering from Zara's psychic interference. More ships converged on their position. "We're not going to reach the center," Holt realized. "We'll have to detonate from here." "No," Jackson said firmly. "The bombs need to be placed inside the hub to destroy its core. We need another way in." He studied the tactical display, then pointed to a section of the hub. "There. Service ports. For maintenance drones. They're large enough for our shuttle." Holt considered this for a moment, then nodded. Take a team. The Valiant will keep them busy as long as we can. Minutes later, Jackson, Zara, and 4 volunteers, 2 humans and 2 Allesians, were aboard a shuttle carrying 3 of the antimatter bombs. They launched from the Valiant as the larger ship engaged in a desperate battle with the Void Fleet. Good luck, Commander Holt's voice came over the comm. Make it count. The shuttle darted through the chaos of battle, using the larger ships as cover. Jackson piloted it with all the skill he had learned on Earth's dangerous training grounds, evading energy beams and debris. There, called one of the Allesians. The service port. Jackson aimed the shuttle toward the opening in the hub's surface. It was a tight fit, but they squeezed through, finding themselves in a massive tunnel that led deeper into the structure. Inside the hub, the environment was unlike anything they had imagined. The walls pulsed with biological matter integrated with machinery. Lights flowed through conduits like blood through veins. This way, Zara said, her voice strained. I can sense the center, where the original AI core must be. They moved through corridors that seemed to be alive, encountering strange maintenance drones that Zara was able to confuse with her psychic abilities. The deeper they went, the more they saw evidence of the Void's true nature. Organic material, fused with technology in ways that blurred the line between living and machine. Look, Jackson said softly, pointing to transparent chambers along one corridor. Inside were beings, or parts of beings, from dozens of different species, connected to the hub systems. Some were Allesians. Zara stopped, her hand pressed against one chamber where an Allesian floated in suspension. This was Elder Talon, one of our greatest scientists, she whispered. Now just a processing node in their network. Can you free them? Asked one of the Allesian volunteers. Zara shook her head sadly. Not individually, but when we destroy the core. She didn't finish the sentence. They all understood what it meant. Death, but also release. They reached what appeared to be a central chamber, a vast space filled with a pulsing crystalline structure. Streams of data and energy flowed into and out of it. The AI core, Jackson said. Set the bombs. We have 10 minutes to get out. As they began placing the antimatter devices, a voice suddenly filled the chamber, not spoken aloud, but projected directly into their minds despite the neural blockers. Your effort is futile. I am preservation. I am continuation, Zara gasped, staggering under the mental assault. It's trying to access our minds. Keep working, Jackson ordered, fighting against the pressure in his own head. Integration is salvation. Resistance is waste. The final bomb was set. Jackson activated the timer, 10 minutes and counting. Let's move, he shouted. They turned to leave but found their exit blocked by Void drones, not the maintenance units they had seen earlier, but combat models, heavily armed. Back, Jackson yelled, pulling out his weapon. The team took cover as energy beams sliced through the air. The battle was brief but intense. 2 of their team fell, a human marine and an Allesian volunteer. Jackson and the others fought desperately, but they were pinned down, unable to reach the exit. The bombs will detonate in 7 minutes, reported the remaining marine. Zara looked at Jackson, a sad smile on her face. We always knew this might be a one-way trip. Jackson nodded grimly. As long as we take this thing with us, it's worth it. Suddenly, their comms crackled to life. Jackson, this is the Defiant. Do you copy? Jackson couldn't believe his ears. Captain Maya, how? No time to explain. We've docked at the main entrance. Can you get there? Jackson looked at the tactical display on his wrist computer. Negative. We're cut off, but the bombs are set. Get the Defiant clear before detonation. There was a pause, then Maya's voice again. Understood. Your sacrifice won't be forgotten. As the minutes ticked down, Jackson and Zara found a moment of quiet behind their cover. You know, Jackson said, for someone from a peaceful species, you turned out to be quite a warrior. Zara smiled. And for a Deathworlder, you have a remarkable capacity for compassion. The timer on Jackson's wrist showed 1 minute remaining. The Void drones had stopped firing, as if waiting for the inevitable. Any final words, biologicals? The AI's voice invaded their minds again. Jackson looked at Zara, then at the remaining members of their team. Just one, he said aloud. Humanity. The explosion, when it came, was beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. The antimatter bombs detonated at the heart of the Void Hub, creating a chain reaction that tore through the massive structure. The collective consciousness of the Void Hegemony, the rogue AI that had consumed countless species, was finally silenced. 3 months later, Captain Maya Reyes stood on the observation deck of the rebuilt UES Defiant, watching as the first joint human Allesian colony ship prepared to launch. The surviving Allesians had been granted sanctuary on Earth, and many had chosen to stay, finding that the death world was not as terrible as they had once believed. Beside her stood a memorial plaque, listing the names of those lost in what was now called the Void War. Lieutenant Commander Jackson's name was at the top, along with Commander Zara Lumen and all the brave souls who had given their lives aboard the Valiant. They would be proud, said a voice behind her. Maya turned to see the Allesian High Counselor approaching. Yes, Maya agreed. They showed us all what was possible when different species worked together. The counselor nodded solemnly. We were wrong about humans. We saw your capacity for violence as a flaw, not understanding that it came with a capacity for sacrifice just as great. And we learned from the Allesians that peace is worth fighting for, Maya replied. As the colony ship departed, carrying both humans and Allesians to establish a new world together, Maya thought about how everything had changed. The galaxy had been saved not just by the might of the Deathworlders, but by the combined strengths of two very different species. The Deathworlders had answered the alien SOS, and in doing so, had forged a new dawn for all species.